Hi, crafties, and welcome to Weekend Crafting Adventures. I'm Kim, and I have just finished up making some shaker bookmarks that are personalized with some of my coworkers' names on them. And the inspiration behind this project is that I am actually doing a book study with about 4 or 5 of my coworkers on it's almost like a child development book about how to teach children the way that they learn, really focused in on that preschool age. And I thought it would be really fun to create some personalized shaker bookmarks for my coworkers, my teammates that are doing this book study with me. So it's a pretty simple inspiration, but definitely something I was excited about. We're going to be meeting for the next couple of weeks, going over just what we're learning as we read this book. And so I thought it'd be really fun to make everybody some personalized shaker bookmarks. And when I was looking into this crafting project, I was really kind of excited about the thought of putting a little shaker window into the bookmark. In my research for this crafting project, I kept coming across the different tutorials for making greeting cards and all these other cards into shaker cards. But I really had a hard time finding some specific tutorials about the shaker bookmark that did not use something called a fuse tool. I do not have a fuse tool, and so I really wanted to just create these bookmarks with cardstock and then acetate sheets, which is what the window is into the shaker, and my Cricut machine. And so that was a little more challenging, I found, to find some tutorials really that did not use whatever the fuse tool is. I'm going to have to investigate that. But I did find one resource that was on YouTube, and it is called My 3D Paper. And that actually was a specific tutorial for making a shaker bookmark with the Cricut machine. So I watched that. It was one of the tutorials where there's no real talking about what they're doing. It was more like music in the background with a video of how to use your Cricut design space and your machine to cut out the different pieces and then how to put it all together. So it was only really, I think, about a maybe 12 to 15-minute tutorial, but it gave me all the information I needed to get started. And so let me highlight a couple of the really important materials that I used that are a little bit different and that I had to actually purchase for this project. So I needed the acetate sheets. Those are really clear, like thin plastic layers, and that creates the window for where you're going to be able to see whatever it is that you put in that little, I guess I would call it kind of like a pocket that's going to be shaking. So the acetate sheets I needed, I bought some thicker glitter cardstock. I did about 5 different colors and themes for the bookmarks, 4 or 5. And so I did want to kind of within that personalization of the bookmark have some different colors. And I got the glitter, and I guess I'll call it chunky glitter. It's not the real thin, tiny glitter that I've typically seen or used in crafting. These are more a little bit bigger, a little bit more chunky. Sometimes they have little shapes. Like one of the chunky glitters that I got had llamas and cactus, things like that. And I actually found a great deal at Michael's. They had some of these tiny little containers, but enough glitter that it would be able to use for this project and lots of other projects on clearance for $2. And so I was really excited because normally they're between like $3 and $5, depending on the color, the size, and the shape. So I found mine on clearance for $2, and that was super exciting. And aside from that, I just used a lot of my leftover cardstock from my shadow box project and from my rolled paper wreath project. I had a nice variety still of colors that I kind of thought I wanted to use some of those again in this project. So let me talk a little bit about the experience and what I did and what I learned in this project. It's a pretty straightforward project. I created some bookmarks that are about 2 inches by, I want to say, 8 inches. So more of a larger size bookmark. And one of the reasons I chose the larger size was so that I could create and have that shaker window be part of the bookmark. And I knew that was going to be a little more tricky than trying to get that shaker window on a greeting card because the size of the bookmark is just so much more narrow than a greeting card is. After I knew that I wanted to make it one of the larger bookmarks, just based on the fact that I wanted to include that shaker window into the design, I also decided that I wanted to personalize these bookmarks with my teammates' names. I thought that that would be a really fun way to customize them, make them a little bit different. So I did first try with my Cricut to have the pen write their name on the back side of the bookmark. I didn't love the way that looked. And so I went with my second plan of that, which was to actually do a cut of cardstock and an offset shape around the name to kind of give it that 3D look on the back of the bookmark. So that was one way that I was definitely excited to personalize these bookmarks. And then the other way that I made these bookmarks was to pick out about 4-5 different designs. I've completed about 4 of them of the designs, but I haven't done the 5th yet. I'm pretty sure I'm adding one more in there, but it's not going to be done yet. And so I'm just going to talk about the 4 that I definitely did make. And those designs I decided on, one would be read your heart out. And so instead of the word heart, I wanted to create that shaker window in the shape of a heart. And so that was one of the designs I chose. The next one I actually used in my bullet journal as one of my pages in the back of my bullet journal. And it's one of my favorite sayings, and it is, "The world was hers for the reading." And so that was a lot of words, but I found that if I found the right size font and the right kind of font, that I would have my Cricut Maker write those words onto the front of the bookmark. And the shape for the shaker that I chose for that design was a sun. And I just thought about just like a sunrise and bright orange, pink, red colors. And I thought that I could find some really cute, fun sequins, chunky glitter to go in that sun. So that was the second design. And then the third design that I chose was one that was "You Fell Asleep Here," because it's a bookmark. I thought that would be cute. And I was am incorporating a moon and star shaker window on that bookmark. And then the final bookmark, I had to get an owl in there because my coworker Brittany's a huge fan of owls. So is my mom. So I thought it'd be really fun to try and incorporate one of the shaker windows as the shape of an owl. And so I chose a design that said, "Owl, save your spot." And in the middle of that bookmark was going to be that owl shape window for the shaker. So the first bookmark that I wanted to make was the "Read Your Heart Out." And this was going to be the first time I was doing this shaker window. And all of my research told me that I definitely needed to use layers of cardstock to kind of create that gap between the cardstock and the acetate window where you could put those chunky glitter sequins in. And I had two fails at first because what I tried to do the first time was put those layers in between the front and the back of the bookmark. And what kept ending up happening was that it became too thick. In other words, when I went to put the front and back of the bookmark together with my adhesive, it just didn't close well. It was really hard, and I just didn't like the way it looked. It looked a little bulky. It didn't look as clean and crisp as I wanted it to look. And so I decided to go back and look at some more of those shaker card tutorials. And there is when I learned I actually didn't have to put the layers in between the front and back of the bookmark. I actually could create that little pocket for that chunky glitter on top of the front of the bookmark. So the first two, like I said, I ended up with a fail. It's for my coworker, and I wanted it to really just look nice and look professional. And so I got rid of those two and decided to do it again for the third time. And that third time was the charm, because once I did layer that cardstock shape of the heart in 3 different layers. So 3 little cutout hearts is what I layered on top of each other to create that pocket. It was a big enough pocket to get a good amount of chunky glitter in. And the front and the back of the bookmark, I could just adhere together, and there was no space in the middle. And on top of that, it was not too thick that it's not going to work in a book. It's not going to be too thick of a bookmark that you won't be able to close the book around it. So I was completely happy with that strategy. And that is what I did for all of my bookmarks. So within this process, there was cutting those 3 main materials. So the cardstock, which is easy to cut, no problem, the chunky glitter cardstock, and then the acetate for those windows. So 3 different cut settings in this project. And I also, from what I learned, when I was doing one of my previous projects, was to use a different cutting blade for each material. So I did use a different cutting blade for the chunky cardstock, glitter cardstock, the regular cardstock, and the acetate for the windows. So that did add some time into this project, because when I'm switching out those blades and I'm just kind of making sure that my machine's ready to go, it just took me a little longer than what it would if I just kept the same blade in and cut all the different materials. But the process was really fun, and picking all of the different colors based on my coworkers and the theme of the bookmark was super enjoyable. Layering the different pieces to the bookmark, I really enjoyed that process, and I found my all-time favorite adhesive glue so far. I had been reading a lot about it. It's pricey, and so I was kind of trying to see if there was another kind of adhesive that I could find glue-wise to use in my paper crafting, but I finally just decided everybody talks so highly about the Barely Art Precision Craft Glue that I had to buy it, and I am a total fan. I don't think I will ever use any other kind of glue adhesive in my paper crafting because this is awesome. If you haven't tried it, if you get the opportunity to, it is well worth the money to get this Barely Art Precision Craft Glue. It's awesome. I just can't say enough good things about it. On top of the fact that it comes with like these different application tips so that depending on the project you're doing, you get the right amount of glue to come out of the bottle, which is really important because one of the things I have learned over time is that I am a little heavy-handed when it comes to glue. I tend to add a little too much and glob it on, which is not a good thing in paper crafting. And so these application tips have really helped me with that. The final little addition of little crafty fun that I added to these bookmarks is that while I was at Michael's, they had all of these bundles of different kinds of ribbons that were on sale. And so I got this bundle of ribbon, and I thought it would be really fun to just put a cute little tassel or string at the end of the bookmark. So all of my bookmarks will have that too. And so this was a really fun project, and let me talk about my crafting keepers. So the first crafting keeper for this project is going to be the function on my Cricut Design Space that allows me to change the space between the letters in the names because I personalized the bookmarks with cut out cardstock instead of using the Cricut Maker to write the names on the back. I wanted, again, that 3D look. So the line spacing, the letter spacing function in Cricut Design Space, I chose a font that was a little bit not too scripty, but definitely a little bit more of a scripty, swirly font. And so what I did is I changed the spacing in between the letters and brought them closer together so that when Cricut was cutting those names out of the fun glitter cardstock that I got, they could be pretty much attached. Some of the letters weren't, just because that's how the font worked and how the cutting worked. But a lot of the names that I did, I was able to get out in like 1 or 2 pieces. And that is my first crafting keeper, that function of being able to change the spacing between the letters. And I'm sure you can guess my second crafting keeper for this project, and that is going to be the Barely Art Precision Craft Glue. I want to make sure I say it correctly, so I keep looking at the bottle as I am talking about it because it is awesome. It is really my first project with paper crafting that I am using a glue, not glue dots or, foam adhesive. I didn't need any of that for this project. And so this is awesome. I definitely will keep it in my crafting corner. It is definitely going to be used many, many more times in the future. So my satisfaction rating for this project is a 5. This is such a fun, fast crafting project. It's personalized. I love that I'm going to be giving my teammates a bookmark that's personalized with a fun saying and a cute shaker window with some bright colors and chunky glitter. It was a really fun project. I really enjoyed planning out the different colors for the different people and personalizing them with everybody's name. So it gets a 5. But I will be making a Cricut design space project link and putting that in the blog post. So if you are interested in making one of these shaker bookmarks, or just interested in kind of what goes into that, then I will have that Cricut design space link on my blog post, so you can actually use the same designs that I used if you would like. And that's it. I hope that this inspires you to take your Cricut out of the box, maybe create some fun personalized bookmarks, read a new book, something like that. Until our next adventure, take care.
That's all for this episode of Weekend Crafting Adventures. Now go get that Cricut machine off the shelf and get crafty. For more information on this crafting project, interesting tips, tricks, and techniques, visit wcapodcast.com. Until next time, when we embark on another adventure.